and welcome back. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Juan Londoño and I welcome you to the channel. Today's topic, infrared photography. What the heck is infrared photography? How do you take it? What does it look like? And what do you need? Let's get started. Now before we continue, let me just say something here. And I know you're probably not going to believe me, but I'm not trying to match my kitchen, okay? The orange, it wasn't intentional. It's not like I went out of my way to do this. I was supposed to film somewhere else today in the house, and I decided to film here, and I didn't feel like changing. So, believe it or not, I'm sticking to this story. Let's move forward. If you've been with us for a little while now, I think we're going on to, 8 or 9 videos, whatever. You know that the channel has a certain way of working, right? If we discuss something like how to push a button to take a picture, we don't just talk about pushing the button to take the picture. We talk about the camera, we talk about the lens, we talk about things around the camera, right? So we try to be a little more holistic. So we're going to do that here. To give a better example of how infrared photography operates and how we can use it, we need to kind of understand what it is. And to understand what it is, it helps if we understand how other things work, like sound and electromagnetic waves. Those are going to be the easier examples. So once we get those out of the way real quick, we'll understand kind of like how infrared photography works. All right, let's go there. So we've all heard about dogs and their acute hearing, right? You've heard the stories about the dog whistles that you blow and the dog kind of freaks out and, curls over in the corner or squeals or runs away, right? Well, especially if you're getting attacked by a dog, it's probably not a bad idea to have one of those. So that brings up a really good point, right? Just because you and I can't hear the whistle, it doesn't mean the whistle's not there, right? The sound is not there. The sound is there because you look at the dog and the dog is, curled over in the corner, right? And he's squealing. So the sound is there, but we can't hear it. That's basically how electromagnetic waves work, right? I had a teacher once in electrical engineering that said if you could see the waves in the air from the satellites, from the radio antennas, from the TV antennas, from the cell towers, from everything around us, he said you wouldn't be able to see the person across from you speaking to you because that's how many waves there are in the air, right? It's kind of frightening. And then you kind of brings up a whole nother point that's been hidden for many years is why so many people are getting cancer. That might be a side note here, but I digress, right? So that's basically how it works. Just because we don't see the waves doesn't mean the waves are not there. You open your phone, you pop it open, you pop it on, and voila, right? You're communicating. So the signal's there. You're getting something and you're sending something, right? So that's how infrared photography works. So human ears, as a best case scenario, we listen from 20 hertz to all the way to 20,000 hertz, right? That's, like I said, best case scenario. So stereo speakers and stereos are meant to operate in that range. That's why your subwoofer's down at the 20, 40, 80, and 100 hertz. And then regular voice is like 300 to 3,000. And then you got the high notes that are, up to the 20,000, right? But dogs can go beyond that. The dog whistles go from 23,000 hertz all the way to about 54,000 hertz. So you can see where we can't hear that, but a dog can. Now going back to electromagnetic waves, wouldn't it be cool if we actually could pick those up? Like if you could just go click, and communicate with somebody and then click, turn it off again. That's something for the future maybe, right? But that probably means getting a chip in your head or something like that, which I'm not interested in right now. Anyway, I digress again, and I'm going to be doing a lot of that just because it's hard for me to stay focused on one thing. My mind's all over the place, so bear with me. Okay, so, excuse me a second, and believe it or not, this is not alcohol, although I could use a drink right now. Oh, that's nice. It's water, by the way. So back to infrared photography, right? Same as we just talked about sound. What is the spectrum that humans can see? And then what is this infrared spectrum, which really is going to turn out to be a spectrum that we don't see with our bare eyes, right? So the human eye has a spectrum of about 400 to 700 nanometers. Now, what the heck is a nanometer? Some of you have probably heard of it, some haven't. So you know what a meter is, right? A meter is like a yard. It's like 3 feet. Actually, I think it's a little, I can't remember if it's a little longer or shorter. I have to do the math. But let's assume it's about a yard, right? So A millimeter is when you take the yard and you break it down into 1,000. That's a millimeter, right? A centimeter, which is very popular, that's the one that the rulers have. That's just broken down into 100 or 100, right? So a millimeter is broken down into 1,000. A micrometer is broken down into 1,000,000, and a nanometer is broken down into 1,000,000,000. So you can imagine how freaking small that is in measurement. And when you say that light has a frequency, say of a nanometer, it means it has to do the cycle, the complete cycle, up and down, like a sine wave, in a nanometer. So human eyes can see 400 to 700 nanometer wavelength. We don't see the wavelengths, but we see light in that spectrum, right? And infrared light operates at the 700 to 1200, kind of like that dog whistle. It's beyond what our eyes can see, right? But again, just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not there, right? We definitely know it's there. And how do we know it's there? We're going to see some cool stuff in a minute. So there are devices that see, more of this spectrum. We only see 400 to 700, right? And infrared is 700 to 1200 nanometers. But there are devices that see the full spectrum, and they're called full spectrum devices, just for your information. So why infrared, also called IR? Why infrared photography, right? Why bother with this in the first place? Well, it looks very surreal, very artistic looking. Right? That's what it's used, one of the main reasons it's used for. It's also not seen very often. It's not very popular, and some of us like to do things that not everybody else is doing, right? You want to be a little different from everybody else. The following images I'm going to show you are really cool examples of what infrared photography is, how it looks, and kind of like what it can do for you with the stuff that you take. So take a look at the following images and check out these beautiful colors. So as you look through these, you start to see these don't look like your regular images, right? If you take, for example, a picture and you put it through a red filter, everything's going to look red, right? Or if you put it through a purple filter, everything's going to look purple. This is not the case with these, right? Leaves come out looking a certain way in some of these. Grass, water, the sky, each one takes its own value, right? In the frequency spectrum, right? It gives you a different light, a different color. So it's a really cool concept. So now you see why infrared photography is just so freaking cool. So now the next topic is, how do I achieve infrared photography? Like, what do I need in order to get this done? So for beginners, if for whatever freaking reason you're still shooting a film camera, and I still have mine, I'm attached to it, but rarely do I use it these days, right? Film is just a little harder to get and it's a little harder to process. But if you are, and you're still active with it, you can buy infrared film. That's how film photographers, that's how we did infrared photography in the past. You bought infrared film. But it's a little hard to get these days. If you think regular film is getting difficult to find, infrared film is getting even harder to find. Besides the film, you need infrared filters that go on your lens to trigger the film. That's how it works. You need certain frequencies to come through that glass that that further down your camera trigger the film once it goes through all the glass, right? And it hits the film, it triggers the infrared elements in that film, so you get these beautiful colors. And if that's not bad enough, right? You got the film, you got the filters. Now you have to process it differently. You can't just take it to your pharmacy across the street and say, hey, can you process this film? You have to send it to a special lab, and they have to process the film for infrared photography. So pros and cons real quick, very simple. The truth is, it's relatively easy to do, right? You buy the film, you buy the filter, and then you send it away and get it processed. The con is that film is hard to get, right? And processing is difficult to find. So maybe film photography is not your best option. Let's see what the next option is. So the next option is what we shoot today, digital cameras. So there's two ways of doing it with digital cameras, okay? One is you take your camera and you convert it permanently to be an infrared camera. So you're gonna have to either buy another camera or you're gonna have to have a camera on the side to pull this off, okay? And that's what most photographers do. The other option is you take your existing digital camera and you start using infrared filters, like we talked about, and then you have to do a few other things, right? As a quick recap, let's talk about what the eyes see again, right? We said 400 to 700 nanometers. Now remember this, 400 to 700 nanometers. Now wouldn't you believe that our sensors on the camera already, in many cameras, these sensors already approach full spectrum. So what is full spectrum? Remember, full spectrum is that you get to see the full range of light, right? So sensors in cameras can go from 300 to 1200. And remember, infrared is 700 to 1200. So our sensors on the camera already are full spectrum. They can already see infrared light. Then why doesn't our camera shoot pictures like the ones I just showed you, right? Well, for one, if my camera was shooting pictures like the ones I showed you, going to do a wedding would be kind of funny, right? It would be like being in Barney Land. Like the bride would be purple and everything. I don't even want to think of that. I'd spend like 3 weeks in post-processing trying to fix everybody's colors, right? So you don't necessarily want your camera to be in infrared mode all the time, right? So that's an important thing. The reason our cameras don't see the whole infrared spectrum, right? They only see what we see, which is that 400 to 700, is because they have an IR cut filter. Where does that filter sit? It sits on your sensor, right inside the camera. There's an infrared cut filter, which basically cuts infrared light. So one of the things we can do, if we don't want to convert our camera, right, we want to leave that IR cut filter in there, is we can buy a 720 IR filter. They go on the internet, and I'm going to put links, in the description so you can see these in case you want to get one. You buy a 720 IR filter, and it basically gets around the problem already in the cameras that we currently have. So the way this 720 IR filter works is it blocks out visible light, the light that you and I see, right? That 400 to 700 spectrum. And it basically allows the 700 to 1200 by, overcoming the IR cut filter. To some degree anyway, right? I don't know if it does it 100%, but it does it to some degree. So if you want to go this route and you want to put that filter on your camera, well, those filters are very dark. They block out a lot of light. So what does that mean? You know what that means. You're going to need a tripod. The camera is going to have to sit on a tripod. If you're shooting something still like a mountain, a tree, whatever, a lake, that might work. But if you're shooting a scene that has people moving, and you have to leave that lens open for a while, that may not work. So you have to start by setting the aperture, right, correctly. You're going to have to set the ISO differently. And you're going to have to do a custom white balance, believe it or not. And when you get these filters, you can either go online to research that. Sometimes they bring little pamphlets that tell you how to set up the camera to get the most out of them, so you can do the infrared photography. But it gets more complicated. You have to set your .dng color profile in your post-processing software, which means you're going to have to go into either Photoshop or whatever you're using and start playing around with the settings. And that will start getting a little complicated. It's not impossible, but it starts to get a little complicated. And then in the same software that you're using, you're going to have to convert all your color channels so that it looks properly. And really the sad thing here is that you're doing all of this stuff on a camera that's already a full spectrum camera. Your sensor is already a full spectrum sensor. So you're buying filters and you're setting up all this stuff in your software and all the settings before you take the picture. Oh my gosh. And your camera's already wired to do this, right? So there are pros and cons here, right? The pros is that you can easily buy the filter and you can watch a few videos but you're going to spend some time, right? And then you're going to have to tweak it. If, for example, you're supposed to get a purple effect from green leaves and you take this picture and it's a bluish effect, well, then you're not where you need to be. You're not getting the most of that filter that you purchased. For IR photography, you're going to have to tweak and tweak and tweak until it looks like one of the pictures I showed you where the leaves were purple, right? And then you got it right. So there's a lot of tweaking and tuning and maybe speaking on, blogs to people about how to get it done right. It's going to take a little time. It's not very expensive. The filters are not expensive at all. You probably already have the software for editing, right? So those are the pros and cons. Pros is that you can access it easily. There's very little money involved. It's the time. It's going to take time to get this done. Or the big OR, camera conversion. That one takes the money and doesn't take the time, right? You're going to need about $250 to $350, $400 to send your camera away. And I'm going to give you a link below as well, so that you can see where I would send it. I'm getting ready to send my camera, one of my old cameras, for conversion. That's a fantastic place. They've been around forever, and they are known in the industry for their IR conversions. So send your camera to a place that's trustworthy. Don't save $50 going somewhere else that you don't know what you're going to get. This place is awesome. They do it well, and they're really not that expensive. They've been doing it for a long time. They calibrate your camera. They calibrate the focusing, because once they mess around with the sensor, they have to do that as well. And everybody raves about this place, right? That's why I would recommend it to you if it wasn't really good. So here's the thing that I didn't mention. You can actually do it yourself. Check out some YouTube videos on how to remove the IR cut filter from your sensor, from your camera sensor. Or you can say DIY infrared conversion, and you'll get a bunch of videos. If it doesn't look too bad for you, try it, right? Worst case, you're gonna have to send it to them anyway and get it done. But I don't like playing with certain things, and I'm a person that works on my car, I work on my motorcycle, I do my own stuff around the house. Very rarely do I need to call somebody. But there are things I don't play around with. Opening that camera up and playing with the sensor, ooh, I don't know. You might have the cojones to do this, but I don't want to play with that stuff, right? Especially, we talked about calibration and focusing as well, and I don't know that we can do that part, right? I haven't watched all the videos. Maybe we can, so check them out, but just keep that in mind. It can get a little delicate. So what happens when you send this camera away and you pay the $350 and they do the conversion and they send the camera back to you, and now this thing's sitting in your hand? Did you just start taking pictures? Well, yes and no. You can, and you're going to get IR photography, infrared photography, but you still want to get a couple of filters, right? And when you send it away, when you go on their webpage, I'm going to give you the link, as I said, you're going to have options. Do you want green leaves to give you a yellow effect? Do you want them to give you a red effect? Do you want them to give you a blue effect, a purple effect, right? You're going to have to pick that. And then to enhance that, you buy the filter, right? And you can talk to them. They'll tell you which filters to buy. Like I said, I'll put some filters down below in the description as well. And they sell packets of filters that you can get so you can play around with them. I think it's pretty cool. And you get to one place and you shoot it and you change the filters and see what it gives you, right? That's what we do as photographers, experiment, right? The thing you got to remember is, you take this extra camera along with you on a trip, you're not going to take every picture in infrared mode, right? Because every picture is not going to look right if you take it in infrared mode, first of all. Second, you don't want to look at 200 pictures that you took on a week-long weekend trip up in the mountains somewhere, and they all have a purple hue to all the leaves. I mean, that kind of takes away from the beauty, right? If everything looks the same. So this is the kind of thing, it's kind of like the fisheye lens where you take it with you and you may use it once or twice, right? So if you have to carry very little weight, if you're going to be hiking up a trail for a long time, if you got to carry food and tents and stuff, this might not be the time to carry this camera, right? But if you're going to go to the local gardens and you're driving there and you can take a nice big pack with your lenses and a couple of cameras, and you're going to walk around for 2 or 3 hours, that sounds pretty good, right? That might be a good time to take your infrared camera once you do the conversion. And if you're not going to do the conversion, then take all your filters and take all that stuff with you, right? These are the things that we need to think about before we even leave on a trip. We've talked about that, right? Take an inventory of what you're going to need and what do you really need to take, right? Can you leave stuff at home? So infrared photography, very special, very beautiful. And like a fisheye lens, you don't want every picture going through it. So pros and cons real quick, so we can wrap this up. Obviously you see, right? There's more money involved. But on the other hand, there's less time involved. You're not going to muck with software. Your regular processing times, right? Your camera, you set it the way you normally set it. And regular processing times, right? A 60th of a second, 125th of a second. You take your pictures just like you normally take your pictures. You don't have to open the aperture and leave it open for 30 seconds because the filter is blocking out all that light. The filters that you would add here are simple coloration filters without blocking all this light, right? So that's a big difference. The place that I mentioned, by the way, is called Live Pixel, just in case you want to know now before, so you don't have to go digging for it in the stuff in the links that I give you. It's called Live Pixel. That place is fantastic. They're wonderful, and they'll take your camera, they'll treat it like their own, and they'll send it back to you, and it'll be an infrared camera. And I can't wait for you. Hopefully you can do this, and then go back to this video, come down to the comments, and let me know what you think. Before we summarize, if this was a cool topic, please go down here on your bottom left and give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, down here on your bottom right, you can subscribe. And don't forget to hit that little notification bell, because that's what's going to tell you that I've posted a video every week, whether it's Friday evening or Saturday morning, because I post it on Fridays for Photo Philosophy Fridays. That's a different topic. And for videos like this, which are instructive, informative, then those usually go out on Saturdays, right? So if you want to keep getting these, please subscribe. Share it. If you know anybody that loves photography that you think would benefit from IR photography, oh man, please share it with them. Don't keep this to yourself. This is a beautiful topic. This is a beautiful field. Let other people experiment with it. If you have a buddy and you both do it, you can both do like a different look on your camera. One of you can do the yellow, the other one can do the purple, and then you guys can even switch cameras, right? And you can help each other, because I'm going to get tired of taking purple pictures when I go on my trips. So if I have somebody that can lend me theirs and they're doing yellow hues, then I can kind of get a little variation, right? So please share it with people that enjoy photography, and let them learn a little bit about it in case they don't know, right? So to summarize, what is infrared photography? Now we know, right? It's that spectrum of light that the human eye can't see, the 700 to 1200 nanometer range, right? We see 400 to 700, and we don't see 700 and beyond, right? So that's infrared photography. And why IR photography? Why do we bother? Well, you saw for yourselves. It's beautiful. It's surreal. It's very artistic. Can you imagine in your living room a scenery from a trip you take where you have a big tree and some mountains in the back, and you take this picture and say you have the yellow, IR hues, and this thing comes back and you get this picture and you're looking at it and you're just staring at it because it's so beautiful, and then you enlarge it, put it in your living room above your sofa, and just everybody that comes in is going to look at it and go, wow, where did you get that? And you're going to say, I took it myself, right? And you don't have to tell them how you did it. So, so that's pretty cool. The other thing we talked about is, how do you do it? Well, you can do it with a film camera, right? You can do it with a digital camera as is, just by buying the filters and tweaking the settings and then tweaking the software. A lot of work, very little money. Or the third option is you can take one of your existing cameras, send it in for a conversion, get it back, and it is now a full-time infrared. I mean, I'm getting so excited with this topic, especially after seeing those pictures, that I feel like, even buying a cheap, $150, $200, you can get them, right? An older model, digital camera. It doesn't have to be high resolution, right? If you get like a 12 megapixel, that is fine. And then you put a slap or sensor, an IR conversion on that, right? Oh my gosh, then you have 2 or 3 of those things, so you can take a different one on different trips. Isn't that cool? So that, my friends, was the summary. I hope you liked it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you're able to share it. And we'll be talking about some cool topics coming. I got a really nice long topic. It's going to be 10 videos long. So if I did it all in one video, it would be like 6 or 7 hours and everybody would fall asleep. So I'm breaking it down. It's going to be basically taking photography to the next level. So if you're thinking about leaving your 9 to 5, if you're taking photography more seriously and you're thinking of diving in, this series is definitely for you. You don't want to miss this. And this is one you want to share too, because there are a lot of people, especially now with COVID, right, that are getting depressed, that they're not happy with their jobs. Some people don't have the flexibility to work from home, so they lost their jobs. And there's just a lot going on right now. So, you know, be kind to others. Share it with them if you think it can help them, right? So I leave you now, my friends, with a couple of links. There's a small picture that's going to pop up. That's the link to subscribe, and then a video that I think you might find useful. I'll put that in this page as well. So take care of yourselves, please. Drink water. You saw me drinking water. I hope you're drinking your water. Next time I'm going to stop the video in the middle. I'm going to ask you to go get some water if you don't have it already, because we have to take care of each other, right? That's how it works. You're a family now. You're my family. I don't care if you believe that or not. If you don't want to believe it, I consider you my family, and I want to take care of you. So I'm going to keep giving you good information every once in a while. I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to tell you, go get your water. And I hope you took your vitamins today, and keep taking care of yourself. Wear your mask if you can. And God bless you all. I'll see you. Love you all. Take care. And ciao for now.